Please welcome our next winner. It's Lynn Ruan, winner of the Non-Fiction Book of the Year for her book, People Like Me. People Like Me, it's award-winning people, isn't it?
I know, when I done my launch with Vincent Brown, he was like, who are you kidding? There's no one quite like you. What are you on about?
Says Vincent. He would know. Now, it's your first book, really,
Yes.
and here you are winning it. I mean, you saw off light-hearted writers, Mary Robinson,
Yes.
Dermot Ferreter. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. I didn't actually expect it, and like by nature I'm quite competitive. I'm a sports person. I played sports, so like it doesn't matter if you're walking the shop with me, I'll try and walk faster, you know. So it's like, so I'm naturally competitive. But I mean, I've read the likes of Emily Pine's book, which is unreal. So it definitely wasn't something that I was like, yeah, I'm in with a shot. You know, it was. I definitely didn't expect to be sitting here. So I think that was quite a shocker. But it's also hugely empowering to me, because I think for me the biggest thing writing the book was that there's so many things in the book you could judge, you know, that we're judged for, and to get that recognition feels like I've already been accepted by my community when I put the book out, but to have it recognised in other spaces it actually feels like acceptance of who we are and who people like me are, which is amazing.
But what struck me earlier when we were talking, you were saying, you know, I wrote this book, I was expecting a hostile reaction, but readers have embraced it. And that seems surprising to you. It doesn't to me. Readers love honest, truthful stories. Yeah. You know, the year of Me Too, the year of all these stories coming out. Yours fits right into that, and yet you didn't expect that.
No, and I think maybe, I think for me, I've grown up where negative comments come at us in so many arenas, and that's where the name of the book comes from, People Like Me, because comments have been made to me, like people actually take the time to sit down and write. Now I get a lot of positive feedback as well, so I'm not ruling that out, but sometimes the negative stuff seems to override the positive stuff, and that's not right. Like, we should focus on the amount of support that we get, but sometimes that one voice kind of really niggles at your vulnerable bit, you know. And I get letters all the time that says, you know, people like you don't even want to work, or people like you feed off the state, and people like you are spending taxpayers' money, and that's where the name of the book came from, you know. So when I start to try and explain some of our backgrounds and who we are and how resourceful we are and the experience that we've had in life, I'm putting out a message of, this is who sometimes you judge, and this is who people like me are. So I expected that same negative reaction, and I didn't get it. And I mean, I went through counselling the whole course of writing the book to prepare myself for the attack, and the attack never happened. And I was like, whoa, love, lots of love. What do I do with this? I don't know what to do with this.
There's no counselling for love.
No.
I need a positive counsellor. Does anyone know one?
So it was a really positive reaction, and I'm so happy, not only for me but for my community, who fed so much and trusted me with our narrative and our story.
What struck me as well is the start of the book. You talk about Enid Blyton.
Yes.
Like, books, writers, they've always been part of you, and now you're getting to add to their little world.
My mum taught me how to read when I was 2. You know, books was always part of our lives.
God, you are competitive.
And I think that's what saved me in a sense as well, because I think every parent growing up in our situation, my mother and father left school obviously when they were 12 and 13 and grew up in Finglas, and then my dad grew up in a tenement, and even though that was their experience, they knew the importance and the transformative power of education that they didn't get. And they try to instill that in us. And I think that's the same for all working class parents. But unfortunately, sometimes when we're faced with external pressures such as criminality and addiction and poverty and deprivation, sometimes education and reading falls way down the things that you're able for in a day. So sometimes your day becomes about surviving and being able to read and being able to appreciate Enid Blyton and all the people that I've read, even though they're things that we would love to be able to do. Sometimes just surviving becomes our daily battle, and reading can fall off that, you know.
Yeah, we're allowed to clap that. I think that's worth a round of applause. As I said, we don't offer counselling here as such, but what I would love you to do is just bring us back a little bit, because one of the parts of your book that's particularly moving is the impact of the death of your friend, what that had on you, and all the things it triggered for you. Maybe tell us a little bit about what happened at that time, and how difficult was that for you to go back to and think about?
I think to go back and look at when Jennifer died, when she was hit by the bus, was probably the easier part of it, because
You were what age at that
I was 13 and she was hit by the bus, and there was 7 of us. And at that time, what that done for me was I realised for the first time that our lives are uncertain and growing old is uncertain. But what happened very quickly after that was that a lot of our friends died through mental health, through risk taken. So sometimes when you feel like you've nothing to live for, you take bigger risks with your life. So a lot of our friends died because of risky behaviour, you know, and it's a real class thing, you know. If you've no value on your life, sometimes you just take risks that you shouldn't take with your life. So I started to experience that a lot straight after Jenny died. And I think for me, I didn't think I'd live past 16, 17. I didn't know I would grow old. I didn't see that as part of my future. And I became obsessed with that. So after Jenny died, it became about squeezing as much of a life into a short space of time as I possibly could. And that was the impact that it had on me. But what I loved writing about Jenny and remembering her is because often in the media I remember her death, but actually her life had such a positive influence on me. And I still plait my daughter's hair in a wishbone plait now because Jenny taught me how to do. I'm no good at plaits, French plaits, nothing. I'm crap. But the one thing I can do is the fishbone, you know, the fishbone plait, and Jenny taught me that. So it was nice to be able to go back and explore not just their deaths, but their lives as well, and to be able to live my life on the back of that they didn't get, not on the back of, but in memory of them not getting to do theirs, and me trying to make the most out of mine in memory of that.
The other part that I think is interesting as well in terms of you being a writer is you talk about that battle with drugs and how going to a library helped. And there was an intervention from a library. You know, again, not something we necessarily expect to read.
No.
I must go to a library to explore this. But maybe talk to us about that and what happened to you at that moment, how important that was.
I think the library was the thing that was available to me at the time. Right? So when we grow up, we don't necessarily have access to the adequate information or professions, and social capital is not in our favour. So we don't have a psychiatrist, a counsellor or a doctor in the family to go and ask these questions. So at the time, the library was the access point for me to be able to figure out information. But that wasn't probably the driving force. The driving force was that when Jenny died, I set out a plan. And in that plan was that if I lived to certain ages, these are the things I would do. And I just wondered whether heroin would get in the way of the plan. So I think I was more of a control freak than anything else, you know, and there was never any drugs in my household. And I was just worried that if I took heroin, it would completely remove me from maybe making it if I managed to stay alive that long.
Because you'd seen it. You'd seen the evidence in front of you of what it can do.
I mean, but I still see it. I mean, so many of my friends now, I get to celebrate. Like just a few weeks ago, I got to go out for a meal with my friend to celebrate her 2-year anniversary of being clean for the first time since we're kids. Heroin is very much, and drug use and polydrug use is very much still a part of my life. And maybe that's why I went to work in it, because I was so close with that was the thing that could keep me close to the people I loved, you know. And so, yeah, I think I'm very lucky to have stepped out of that space. But I don't think I've always really stepped out of that space. I think I've managed to stay there in a different guise. You know, it's just that I try to channel it through finding solutions for us to be able to succeed rather than be able to, you know, remain on drugs forevermore, I suppose.
Well, here you are sitting here tonight. The response to this has been so enthusiastic. Here you are at your lovely trophy, and I'm sure everybody in the community is as proud as you of what you've achieved. It's just wonderful. Lynn, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.